A top Australian radio presenter has left his show after offensive comments he made about the women's football team. Marty Sheargold said the Matildas reminded him of Year 10 girls. And when discussing the She Believes Cup, he said, "She believes in what? It better be men." The host has since apologised. The station he worked for, Triple M, says they've agreed to mutually part ways. Football Australia, as well as current and former players, have condemned the comments. Well, Kerry Harris is the chair of Women on Side. It's an organisation aimed at improving engagement, access and opportunities in women's football, and she gave me her reaction to the comments.
These comments reflect offensive and outdated ideas about women's football. They wouldn't have been appropriate 20 years ago, and they certainly aren't appropriate now. They are degrading and demeaning to every woman and girl who wants to be treated as an equal participant in society and in sport. The 23 Women's World Cup demonstrated that the Matildas are the most loved national team in Australia. We can continue to strengthen women's football in Australia through ongoing investment and equal opportunities at grassroots levels. But this incident also demonstrates the importance of representation and diversity in the media landscape. We need more women in these roles and in the decision making.
Tell us a bit more about that, Kerry. How many women commentators do you have in the sport, and how many women are making decisions at top level?
That's a really good question. I think Australia is going really well in the media representation in the commentating levels. There are a lot of women that were involved in the World Cup and the commentary teams. There are a lot of ground announcers involved at the actual stadiums. I think where we're going to see real change, though, is in where the decisions are made. Women on Side was formed by lobbying for the 40-40-20 principle to be entrenched in the Football Australia Constitution. What that means is if you have 40% representation of men, 40% representation of women and 20% other, so that you've got more diversity around the board table, and so that you've got those diversity of views and you have women's voices being heard where decisions are made.
And Kerry, in this case, Marty Sheargold has left his job. Does that draw a line under this, or should the discussion continue? Would you like to see more action of any sort?
It's interesting that there were three commentators on that radio show, so I'd be interested to see what happens with the other two presenters. And I do think that we need to keep this commentary going. I'd like to give a big shout out to Rosie Malone and Libby Trickett, Australian Olympians, who have amplified this story. So I do think that we need to keep the conversation going, and that we need to have everyone commentating on this, and for others to step in, the football community, the more society more broadly, to say this isn't good enough and to step in and say something.
Kerry, how much would you say the World Cup really changed things in Australia, not just around football and girls playing football, but female sport in general, given how successful it was?
Well, the growth has been phenomenal, particularly I will commentate about football. So when we have mega events like the World Cup, both men's and women's World Cups, we do traditionally see a spike in registrations in participation of around 15 to 20%. I've heard as much as 30%, where it does drive participation into the sport. So I think that these events are really important. They give opportunities for people to be seen. It's been phenomenal in Australia for women's sport more broadly, because what the World Cup did, and the visibility, it was one of the biggest viewed sports in Australia. It beat anything the Socceroos can do. And in Australia, we have a game called Australian Rules Football. It was bigger than their grand final viewing. So what that meant is that women and girls could see, they could be what they could see. And that's really important. Visibility and respect is really important.